What we want to do in this exercise is create the inner section of the breastplate that we've been working on. Now, in order to do this, we are going to make use of what I'm going to call more traditional CG modelling techniques, such as pushing and pulling around the vertices of our model by means of Max's transformation tools, as well, of course, as making use of a generous helping of extrudes and connects. Before we go any further, let's quickly maximize our perspective view here, and then after selecting the geometry that we created in the previous exercise, right-click and convert over to using an editable poly object. In Polygon Subobject mode, let's hit F4 to show edged faces, and then after selecting one of the polygons on the underlying surface, hold down the Shift key as we click to select another, which as you can see goes ahead and selects this entire loop of polygons. What we want to do then is hit delete in order to clear them out. Coming over to the command panel, let's select border mode, select the inner border of our object, and then press the R key in order to engage the scale tool. Because we want to extrude these edges, we need to hold down the Shift key, and then we can left click and drag inward on the XY axis of the scale gizmo. Jumping to the front viewport, we want to come up to the Align panel on the Ribbon UI and align our selection on the Z or Z axes, which, as you can see, nicely flattens everything out for us. Let's then move everything up so that the selection is sitting ever so slightly above its initial extrusion point, meaning we get this very slight upward slope. Now, of course, jumping back to our perspective view, you have perhaps spotted that we do have a little bit of a problem here, in that the opening shape we have created doesn't really match our circular opening at the bottom of our already created main helmet piece, which is where we are going to ultimately want to connect the breastplate to. Although, this in fact is a very simple fix, in that all we need to do is make sure that we still have all those edges selected, and then apply a Spherify modifier to them. Now this instantly turns our edge selection into a circle, which is of course exactly what we want. All we need to do now is right click and convert to an editable poly again, come back to border mode and reselect, and then scale the selection on the XY plane until it roughly matches the size of the shape at the base of our helmet. Engaging the Move tool by means of the W key, let's hold down the Shift key and drag upwards in order to create an extrude. Of course, if we realize that our scale is looking a little too big or too small, we can simply right-click to undo, set the scale that we want, and then try the edge extrude again. We can then engage our scale tool by hitting the R key and still holding Shift, scale out on the XY plane. Press W and again, still holding down the Shift key so as to extrude up on the Z axis. And then finally, hit R again. Hopefully your finger hasn't got cramped because we still want to be holding down that Shift key and left click and drag so as to close up the gap. Now you may want to perform one last scale extrude in order to create a nice rounded lip here. If all of that went by a little too quickly, don't worry if you need to rewatch this section of the video a few times in order to get it, as with practice, these types of grouped operations will just become second nature to you. Indeed, given that even experienced modelers oftentimes have to tweak away in order to get things looking just right, if we find ourselves having to do a little bit of cleanup here, or even if we have to run through a few undos and try those extrudes again, well, not to worry, as that is just part of the process that we call hard surface modeling. Looking at our reference again, we see that we do have a little bit of shaping on the breastplate here that isn't currently on our model. And so let's come to our Edge tool, click to select one of the vertical edges here, and then using the keyboard shortcut of Alt-R, select the edge ring. With the selection in place, let's come to the Loops panel and click the Flow Connect option, which as you can see adds a nice bit of shaping to the breastplate that will hopefully be accentuated when we turn this into a subdivision surface in our very next video.